Hey fellow backyard boyers, Nick here. So here we have the finished Snakey Recurve. You can take a look, it's all dried up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put a rest on here. So we're going to put an arrow rest and then we're going to wrap the handle. So the style of rest we're going to be doing is what I like to call a tab rest. Basically we're just going to be making a little tab out of PVC, bend it over to an angle, that way it's going to rest and stick out of the bow. It's nice, it's very streamlined. The handle doesn't add much to the handle. The rest actually sits either on top of your hand, or if you grip a little lower, it sits on its own, and it's enough of a surface area to actually hold the arrow while you draw the bow and shoot. So it's one way to get the arrow off your hand. So if I was doing this on a 3/4 inch bow, I would use 3/4 inch pipe, but since this is a 1-inch bow, just so everything kind of matches up and it's scaled up proportionately, I'm using a 1-inch pipe. And what you want to do is you want to mark, this mark is 1/2 inch in, and then this is 3.5 inches in. So this section right here is 3 inches with a 1/2 inch. This 1/2 inch tab is going to be your arrow shelf. If you want it to be longer, then you just make it a little longer. And you can make this longer or shorter. If you want this to run the whole length of your handle, then make it as long as your handle. If you want it to only be a small tab, you can do that as well. I like doing this because it gives me lots of area to actually tie down or wrap down the handle tab. And another thing you want to do is you want to make an X on the end here, because what we're going to do is we're going to cut this with a saw. You want to cut in one way and then cut in the other way. That way we'll end up with 4 individual tabs, and we're going to use one of these. So I'm going to go cut this and I'll show you what that looks like. So what I like to do now that I've got my little tab here is I like to grind this edge and grind these down just kind of to a rounded point. And then what we're going to do is you're going to grind this section so that it lines up almost flat to the inside curvature. So you're going to take these two edges off. You can use a grinder or sandpaper or a file and just grind that down. And then you're actually going to go and taper this whole thing so that it's really thin down here and it goes up to full thickness up at the top. That way when this sits on the bow, it's going to be nice and flush. So I'm going to go do that and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is what your tab looks like after grinding. So you can see I put a taper in here, and then this is pretty much flat. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to heat this up and fold this back. Okay, so you take your tab here, you just heat it up. And we're just heating up this top section of the tab. Okay, so now you want to take this and push it up against a hard surface like a block of wood or a table, and you want to fold this over, if you can see, like this. So here's our tab. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just glue this onto the side of the bow, and then we're going to wrap over it. Now, before I do that, I'm just going to quickly spray paint this just so that it's not white and it matches the rest of the bow a little bit. Here's the arrow rest glued on. So if you can see it, here it is. It's really simple. You just want to glue it into place so that it lines up between the arrow rest and the string here. So when you put your arrow on, it's nice and lined up. One of the cool things about this tab rest is that because of this curve here, it actually lets the bottom fletching sit into it to an extent, so it doesn't fold down as hard as if this were a square rest or if it were completely flat. Just something I thought I'd mention. So from here we're going to go and wrap the handle. So I'm just going to be using some paracord. You can use whatever you want. You can refer to some of my other handle wrapping videos. So I'm going to go do that and I'll show you what that looks like. First thing I like to do when wrapping a handle with cord or something like that is I'll take a piece of cord and I'll actually go ahead and wrap it down real quick. So if you can see, I brought this around and I'm actually wrapping over this little tab here. If you can see, I'm wrapping over this tab just to lock it into place. As you can see. So then what I do is I just keep wrapping, and you want this tab to be about 4 to 5 inches long, just to give you some play. So you just want to go and wrap, and just keep wrapping until you've gotten as far as you want to go for your handle wrap. As a side note, this could be a wrap in and of itself, what I'm doing right here. So you could simply wrap the handle like this and it'd be simple, easy to finish up. But we're going to do something a little bit different. So I'm just doing this so I know how much cord I need for this handle. Alright, so I'm just going to wrap it just a little bit more. Probably till I get over this first curve. Alright, so there we go. So now I like to give myself an extra foot just so I have that. So now we're going to go and unwrap this and then we'll get started with the main wrap. So I'm going to cut this off and we'll get started with the wrap. You take your handle and you take your cord, and what you want to do is you want to make a loop like this. So you want to place this loop on the front of your handle like this, and you want to tuck this end of the loop down in front to make this little loop like this. And you bring the end around the handle, and then you bring this end here, you can see, you bring this end, this long end, through your loop. Okay, so now that you've got that loop there, you want to center this so that the little knot that results is right in the middle of your handle, and you just pull from right to left. You pull it to the right and it moves everything, and pull it to the left and it tightens it. And you want to keep doing that until it's completely centered. This is going to be the main body of your wrap. You want to make sure that this is as tight as possible before moving on. You don't want this to be able to move. You don't want any play in here. Okay. So now you go ahead, you bring the cord around the back, and you create another loop. You can see you create a loop. So I'm looping it around my thumb. Bring the longer cord around the back, pass that cord through this front loop, and just like you did before, you pull to the right to move it around, pull to the left to tighten it. So you just got to adjust it a little bit until it sits right under the first one. You can see that. So then you want to push these up, just make sure everything's really tight, really snug. You just got to keep tightening as you go. Then you wrap it around again, create another loop, bring it around the back or the belly, bring the cord up and through, tighten it up, not too much. Go ahead, set it up, make it tight, and then make another loop. So we're just going to be repeating this down the whole handle. So I'll show you one more, and then I'm just going to go finish this up. So you go, take this, take your thumb, make a loop, bring it around, take this end, pass it up through your loop, pull that through, pull to the right to tighten, and then to the left, or the right to adjust it, and then to the left to tighten. And then you just keep repeating. So if you can see, I'm almost done with the wrapping. What I've done is I've taken another piece of paracord, I've taken the internal strands out, and what I'm going to do is tuck it under what I've got so far on the end here. So you can see I'm tucking this under, leaving these little tabs up here. So I'm going to cinch this down real quick. So if you can see, I've got these two little tabs and this loop. And I'm going to keep wrapping until I get down to this loop. Once I've covered the handle that I want to cover, I'm going to tuck the loose end into here, and I'm going to pull it through, and that's going to tuck under here, secure the end. So I'm just going to keep wrapping, and when I get to this point, I'll show you what that looks like. Now I've got the wrap as far as I want to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this loose end and pull it up into this loop. Then I want to grab the tabs up here, and then I want to tighten this just a little bit. So you can see I've pulled that up. Now you're going to have to pull kind of hard, because you're actually pulling the end under all the wraps that you just finished. It's going to take a little bit of pressure to get it under there. So you can see I've got it under the first set of wraps. Alright, there we go. So pull that through, you can see. You just want to go and tighten that up. So here we go. Now that I've got this, all I need to do is trim this, and then I'm going to put a little bit of super glue here just to help fix it a little better. But other than that, here's a finished wrap. So I'm going to go cut this off, and then we're going to pad this, the arrow rest here. Alright, so I've gone ahead and I've finished up the handle. So here's the handle. Now what I've done is I've cut two pieces of leather. They're just little pads. What I've done as well is I've taken some contact cement and applied it to the arrow rest and this section of the bow where the arrow will pass. So what you do is I've also applied contact cement to the back of these little pads. So what you do is you place your leather pad where your arrows are going to go. So this first pad, place it where your arrows are going to go. And this is just a piece of leather. So this is just upholstery leather. You could use Velcro, heavier felt. If you wanted to muffle the sound a little bit, Velcro works really well. You could also use animal fur, really short fur like boar or cowhide that's been trimmed. And what I'm going to be using is just this little tab here. Goes right on the rest. So you just go ahead, push that down, and there it is. What this does is that it muffles the sound of the arrow a little bit, and it also protects the bow so that you're not grinding into the PVC here. So here it is. So here's the finished handle. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.